Royalty, power to the chosen people.
Shalom, shalom, and today we're going to look at head coverings. I get a lot of emails on this topic, and honestly, I've been avoiding it. And I'm going to tell you why. I've been avoiding it because some things shouldn't be hard. Most of you who've been on this channel and who know me know that I ascribe to the idea that the way that our scriptures are written, they are written to be carried out by the youngest to the oldest. So there shouldn't be all of this confusion and debate. But I am aware that living in a Western culture where we don't really think the way that our ancestors did, that some things do get confused. And so I've been kind of avoiding it because there's a couple ways you can go about this. And I don't want a person to feel like I'm somehow undoing or overdoing anything. Okay, so like with everything, let Yah be true and every man a liar. Okay, and including myself. So as we tackle this, I'm going to give you some of the stuff I've come across. And I really want you to go at this with an open mind, because this is one of those things where it's not really as cut and dry as I know a lot of people would like it to be. And I know I'm going to get all kinds of HE double hockey sticks for probably saying that, because some people believe that it is. But this is one of those matters, like all the other ones, where culture, context, and renewing of mind are going to have to come into play. Okay, so let's tackle it right off with dealing with the verse, because I know this serves to be probably the largest area of contention. And we're actually going to look at that word contentious, by the way. We need to define that, because an English definition is probably not sufficient. And maybe we should start there. So the idea of being contentious in English is causing or likely to cause an argument or controversial. So debatable, disputable, vex, involving heated argument. A person... oh, you probably can't see that because it's in a weird place on my screen. Okay, let me zoom in for you. There we go. So a given to argument or provoke argument. Okay, so that'll come up in a second when we go over these verses. The second thing is, a lot of people who jump into where we're going to go, which is 1 Corinthians chapter 11, have not read chapters 1 through 10, and they pretty much stop like right before the end of this argument on head coverings, and then deduce their whole argument from that. And that's a very faulty argument. Most people, myself included, if a person walked in on the middle of your conversation and then went out telling something about the conversation without hearing the end or the beginning, you would walk off with a weird kind of thing. So I suggest before you get into this that you, one, understand who, what, when, where, how, and why, because that's very important. And just to give you some background, we're talking to the congregation in Corinth. So this is not to one person's household. This is not to one person. It's talking about what's happening within the congregation when they gather together. I think that's very important to bring out in this respect. Okay, so you can read through it, because Paul lays down some arguments. Now, for a lot of you people who probably don't even read the New Testament, I don't know where you get your information on this particular topic from. Actually, that's not true. I do know where you get it from, and we'll cover some of that in a second. But we're going to look at this, and we're going to come away with what I think is a balance. And with everything, because for me, this is not religion. So if you're in a religion called the Hebrew Israelites, and then maybe I'm not the person for this particular study for you. Like if you have certain doctrines that you ascribe to that are outside of scripture, or certain things make sense to you because people string together verses that are out of context, I'm not the person, because I don't have that particular stronghold of organized religion. I believe in order, seder. I believe that I believe in things being done decent and in order. I believe in them being done by Torah. So man's personal interjection or rejection of something doesn't really sway me one way or the other. So that's kind of where I'm coming from on this topic. I felt like that needed to be said, because I know once this video goes out, I can't take it back. I guess I can always take it down, but can't take it back. Okay, so we got contention. So let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 11. Okay, and let's literally start with verse 1. And honestly, I like the Lexham English Bible. And I know people go into these whole things like King James. I'm not going to do that. But for the sake of argument, let's just use a King James version. Okay. Okay, so this is More Shaul, or Paul, or whatever you want to call him particularly. And he says, "Be ye followers of me, even as I also am of the Hamashiach. Now I praise you, brethren, that ye remember me in all things, and keep the ordinances as I delivered them to you. But I would have you that the head of every man is Hamashiach, and the head of the woman is the man, and the head of Hamashiach is Yah. Every man praying or prophesying, having his head covered, dishonoreth his head. But every woman that prayeth or prophesieth with her head uncovered, dishonoreth her head. For that is even all one as if she were shaven. For if the woman be not covered, let her also be shorn. But if it be a shame for a woman to be shorn or shaven, let her be covered. For a man indeed ought not to cover his head, for as much as he is the image and the glory of Yah. But the woman is the glory of the man. For the man is not of the woman, but the woman of the man. Neither was the man created for the woman, but the woman for the man. For this cause ought the woman to have power on her head, because of the Malachim. Nevertheless, neither is the man without the woman, neither the woman without the man, in Hamashiach, or in the master. For as the woman is of the man, even so is the man also by the woman, but all things of Yah. Judge in yourselves, is it comely that a woman pray unto Yah uncovered? Doth not even nature itself teach you that, if a man have long hair, it is a shame unto him? But if a woman have long hair, it is a glory to her, for her hair is given her for a covering. But if any man seem to be contentious, we have no such custom, neither the assemblies of Yah." Okay? So that's pretty much the conclusion of that whole thought. So he goes, "Now in this that I declare unto you, I praise you not that ye come together not for the better, but for the worse. For first of all, when you come together in the congregation, I hear that there be divisions among you, and I partly believe it." Okay? It says, "For there must be also heresies among you, that they which are approved may be made manifest unto you. When ye come together, therefore into one place, this is not to eat the Master's Supper." So you're kind of getting a background now. You're coming together unto one place. I read further into that because I wanted to kind of bring that point home, because I know we're not going to read all of chapter 11. He's talking about together into a place. Okay, so I just really want that to stick home when we're talking about this. Now, if we go back up, so many people stop literally like one verse too shy, I believe. Like nobody ever makes it to verse 16. And we deal with this word contentious. And I give it to you in English, and I'm going to give it to you in Hebrew. There's a very interesting word in Hebrew, and it kind of has the same meaning, but it gives us a little more insight to the mind of Shaul when he says contentious, and not necessarily when we as Westerners say contentious, because anytime a person is being contentious in a Western sense, more than likely it's a woman, and it's more than likely behind something that she doesn't want to do. So the word in Hebrew, and let me get a color that you can see. Let's go with black. All right. And now I need something right with. Okay, so we have Mem, Dalet, Yod. Uh-oh. Let me go back. And this is going to be a final noon. Okay? And Madin or Modin, right? And it literally deals with this idea of to judge and defend ideas or to apply justice, judging or enforcing law, ensuring someone's rights, seeking quarrel, or being opinionated or right. So this idea of somebody being contentious can also mean somebody enforcing law, judging. And so judging in the Hebraic sense, shafet, right, deals with this idea of weighing one thing against the other. And what he's saying is, really, if it's going to be all that, let me just flat out say that obviously there's no, and I don't even want to paraphrase because I know that'll come up, but if any man seem to be contentious or to want to enforce law, right, because he gave you in the beginning, he talked about ordinances, okay? He gave them ordinances, which he has done a lot of ordinances by his own authority, making good judgment based upon the setting of a church in this area, right? So he's saying defending ideas, applying justice, or judging or ensuring someone's rights, right? We have no such custom, neither the churches or the called out assemblies of Yah. Okay? So he's talking we all, or we Hebrews. That's going to be for you to judge, because that's on you. Okay, I'm going to leave a little bit to you. Okay, so let's deal with this idea then of in the assembly, and let's deal with the practicality. Now, I want to point out a couple of things. So I know a lot of people don't necessarily read their Bibles, but they listen to a lot of different arguments, and then they kind of weigh based upon what they think is right or wrong, and then make an assessment. Well, let me tell you that you cannot do that without using Scripture. So you need to try everything according to the Word, because without Torah, you can't make right judgment. Okay, that Torah is how we make right judgment. I'm going to start with a website called eliyah.com. And I'm not saying everything on this person's website is wrong. I'm not necessarily saying this person is wrong, but I've read through a lot of their stuff. And so went to their thing on head covering. And so if you want to go on, it's www.eliyah.com. And you can literally just probably type in head covering and Hebrew, and it'll probably be one of the first things that pops up. But you can put head covering and Eliyah in your Google search, and I'm sure it'll pop up. So he goes through all the New Testament places, makes his argument. But I got to a point where I was like, ugh, why do people do this? So right here, his argument for a woman covering her head or not covering her head pretty much is weighed in the balance of the fact that it didn't happen in the Old Testament, but we have to do it in the New Testament because there are some things that we do in the New Testament that are different from the Old Testament. At that point, I was pretty much done with this article. I read it all the way through just because I feel like that's how you're supposed to be objective. But then the things that he mentioned of being new, and this is why it kind of ticked me off, is that he says that in the New Testament now we have to do two things that we didn't have to do before, which is be baptized in Yahushua's name, and we must partake of the blood and the body of Messiah, which is not true, because Pesach is what we're partaking in when we, as often as you drink this cup, remember me. It's the sacrifice of Pesach. So kind of lost credibility there by saying head covering is a new thing in the New Testament, just like communion, because communion's not new. So that website was kind of out for me. So you should go check that out and hear that person's arguments, which I feel may or may not help you. All right, so let's get to the nitty gritty. Let's look at the Jewish press. And I know I do this a lot, but what happened with a lot of people when they came into this truth is that the first thing they did was looked at the Jewish people to try to figure out how to keep their customs. And by doing so, they ended up with a bunch of stuff that wasn't in Torah, but kind of made practical sense, so we stuck with it, right? Okay, so let me make this a little bit smaller. So this person, literally, I'm just going to give it to you. It's talking about head covering. If you want this one, it's www.jewishpress.com, and it's going to be Torah sources for covering one's hair. And I'll try to put the actual verses, the actual websites in the comments. So it talks about all of this stuff being in either the Mishnah or the Talmud or from a rabbi. And it says there is a hint to this in Parash Korach, and the way a wife of On ben Pelez prevents him from joining Korach's rebellion against Moshe at the beginning of the Parashah. Okay, the Torah lists the members of Korach. So he's talking about Korah's group, and On ben Pelez is mentioned. As many women know, the night before the rebellion, On confided in his wife. So see, it's just a bunch of extra stuff. I'm just trying to show you. So it's talking about, can women wear tefillin, which are like prayer shawls, and saying that they should, and it's saying that women have a higher mitzvah to wear them. They're supposed to wear them longer. Men just have to wear them when they pray, which is obviously contrary to what Paul said. And then a married woman's obligation is to wear it throughout all the hours of the day. Okay, we'll get back to that. Okay, and the other one, of course, is a head covering in Jewish law, and this is head coverings by Deborah, head covering in Jewish law. And so we'll go to the women, and obviously, okay, the sources for not walking 4 cubits, with the head uncovered is a statement in the Talmud, of the mother of Rabbi Nachum Bar Yitzhak, okay? So, if you can see anything on here, you're not going to see any Bible verses or Torah verses, okay? So, it says for women, and I can't get this all the way down here. I'm trying. Let's see. Oh, there we go. All right. So, it says, women who are or have been married, widows, divorcees, are required to cover their hair. A woman who has never been married does not have to. Okay? And here goes the source. Okay, Numbers 5 and 8, which shows the laws of Sotah, suspected adulteress, and states the priest shall stand the woman before Yah and uncover her hair. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys a little bit of homework. Go look up what that means. So, is he shaming her by uncovering her hair, or is he shortening her hair? Because it's this whole thing, if you go and read that, it's about jealousy. And so the reason why you won't be swift to accuse someone, right, is because there are certain things that have to happen if you accuse them. And I would be terribly irritated with my husband if he had a jealous spirit, and then every time he got a jealous bone up his body, I had to shorn my head, right? Uncovering your head, that's more ritualistic. We're dealing with the people that were concrete. She would have to shorn her head, uncover her head, which would put her to shame. Thus also putting him to shame if she wasn't really lying, and then she'd have to wait and her hair would have to grow back. I mean, it's an interesting concept. Okay, so let's look up these words, covering, in Hebrew, because that's where this is always going to go back to. Always, always. All right, so we have one word, and it's kasa, or chasa, and it's the word, so it's chaf, samek, didn't connect, and hey, or it can be spelled chaf, samek, and then tav. Okay. And this word right here means throne or seat of authority. Okay. It means to cover it up, conceal, or withdraw from sight. The verses I'm going to give you, Numbers 9:15, Genesis 41 and 40, and Psalm 81 and 4. Okay, the next word, and so remember in that verse it talks about a woman who is married covering her head in the assembly. So let me just get to this, and then I'll give you the rest of these words, and I'll really get out of your way. And I'll go through the rest of them for sure. The reason why I understand the practical side of head covering, not necessarily the law side, because if you start high and low through the Old Testament, there's not going to be a place where it says, and women cover your head, and there's not going to be a place. So there just won't. But I understand in the assembly where there's a mixed group why it's important. For instance, there were couples who either a husband was in the truth or a wife and husband couple were in the truth, and you'd have a wife who was a teacher, or there was literally assemblies where one in particular where the woman actually had started the assembly and they were waiting to be sent a teacher, so she was teaching. And so in mixed assembly, right, the woman covers her head because it shows humility. Because in order to teach or deal with the word of Yah, it should be done in humility, okay? So I understand the practical side of it. In a mixed setting, a woman should cover her head because it shows humility, because she's doing it, her head, her hair, or her head, or her, is a sign of authority. The resh or the rosh is a sign of authority, right? And so in order to put a physical symbol of putting yourself below the Melahim, right? It's not necessarily angels like those things floating in the sky, but those people of authority or sent to lead the congregation. It shows the men that although a woman is operating in a role of authority, she understands that she's not over the man. You get what I'm saying? Because it says a woman shall not usurp authority over the man. So in order to adjust that and to give women the opportunity to participate in worship, right, in praying and prophesying, in worship, right, then her head should be covered so that no one in the authority, in the assembly gets confused about who's the head of the assembly. Is it the men? Is it the women? It keeps things into proper perspective. And so this idea of kasah or kasot, deals with the idea of the throne or the seat of authority, which is obviously this covering, is to conceal it or to withdraw it from sight. Okay? So for a married woman, if she gets up in the assembly and she begins to speak, right, or to do anything, I'm not saying speak like preach a sermon, I'm saying like, speak or however, it doesn't matter, and her head is not covered, then it causes confusion. And we see it a lot within the Christian church where you have women who have like first husbands, and the husband is like a little bit lower than the wife, right? And you can see how the picture can be distorted. Now, if this person got up there in humility and probably covered and shared in her capacity and within her proper role, right, then that wouldn't be the case, right? Okay, so then this idea of covering within the assembly, especially for married women, shows that although I'm doing something in a position of authority, that I'm still under the authority of my husband, who is still under the authority of Yah, okay? So, and I want to bring out something, because I know this comes up a lot. It's funny that people pick and choose what is praying and prophesying, and then they try to drag it, obviously, outside of the assembly. But I think we're all aware that women who sing and rap, right, are praying and prophesying, or prophesying for sure. I guess I can't say praying, tefillim, but they're definitely prophesying, which is to uncover the seed. So we have to be careful, because if you're praying and prophesying without ceasing, you would never uncover your head. And that seems really, really impractical for a Elohim who gave women hair. So women are never supposed to show their hair? Like, I don't see how those things add up in a concrete, practical sense outside of this particular setting where women are supposed to veil, their authority. Okay? So, let's go to the next word, because I could be totally just gassing right now. So let's look at all of them. Okay? The next one we have is the word la'at, or lat. Okay? Lamed. So Lamed, Aleph, Tet. So Lamed is obviously shepherd, control, towards, ox goad. Aleph, ox, leader, head. And then Tet is to surround. So it means to cover, veil, or secret. So this word means authority contained. And it means to hide that which is feminine. Okay? So it means to secret it. Okay? Next one. I think I can get it on this same sheet if I try. So this word is like sak. It can be spelled with a samic sometimes, and it can be with a mem. So it can be misak. All right. And it means protective covering, hanging curtain, a hedge, protection from elements or predators. So another reason why a woman would cover, especially when not in the presence, and this is a personal thing, but it makes practical sense. In assembly, if a woman is covered, that means she has a husband. So, I mean, I hate to say this, but I know a lot of you guys go to assembly because you'd be looking for a wife. And, yeah, on the Jewish people say that the unmarried women don't have to be covered. Maybe it's a distinction so that you can hook up or meet up and, find your wife with the uncovered women and then become her covering, because I hear brothers talking like that. But it's a protective covering. So it's like to come down on, or to separate the heads or the crowns. Okay. So it's a protection against predators. So I mean, when married women go out, it's kind of like what American culture tries to use as a wedding ring. And obviously there's other things, because I also saw the word earring translated as one of these words for covering. So obviously you see people get bangles, nose rings in scripture. Yah talks about that, where it kind of separates the single woman from the unmarried women. But this is keep the predators away, because some of you brothers is predatory. And it's also to create a protection when the man is not around. Okay, so we have the word chafar or chafer. And let me put another page so you guys can see that word. And it's chaf, pei or fei, and resh. And this one means a protective covering to go over something, to correct wrong, to reconcile, to purge, or to appease. So now you see what I mean about being in a setting where it's mixed, and some people might have a problem, but nobody has a problem with a woman who operates in humility, right? And so that's where I think this comes into play. It's to not feel challenged. I mean, you can talk to a man and you can say something one way and the person gets completely offended. You can say something another way in humility and meekness and it goes across properly. Okay, I think a head covering serves as the thing that makes that go over better. And it causes a connection, but with a barrier and protection and a hedge, as mentioned in the previous word. Okay, and then the last word I have is samic, and it's kind of a blend of all the words a little bit. Samic mem, yod, kaf, hey. And this word means to support something. And so now that you get the Hebrew words, you can actually go and look up these words. If you have an ancient Hebrew lexicon of the Bible or or a etymological dictionary, you can kind of look up these words, get some verses behind all of these. If you have some biblical knowledge, then all of these immediately made sense. But I don't want to keep you guys too long. But now you can see that although we didn't have a law for something, some things are cultural. I want to end with head coverings are beautiful. And whenever, and I don't know why people do this, but whenever a person bothers somebody about something that they would naturally have no problem doing, it immediately causes an aversion to it. Our people have been covering their heads, and people in the East, in the Eastern cultures, cover their heads with no problem because it's just something practical. But at the same time, letting your hair down and taking care of your hair is also something practical. I hate to turn this into a hair care thing, but if you want your hair to flourish, you have to let it breathe. There's no way around it. Cotton dries out the hair. So I don't think that y'all would be cotton. And your hair needs your antenna. It's your antenna to the universe. It needs to feel the sun. It needs to charge. And I'm getting all in another area, but these are important things, and it's balance. You need all of these elements. There is a place to cover, and there are reasons for covering, and there are reasons for being uncovered, and everything is not a sin. Like, there's balance, and everything done in its proper order and context is so, so, so important. So our custom, or our culture, I should say, not our custom, but our culture is a culture of covering and head wraps, and they look like crowns and they're beautiful. And I love seeing my sisters with their hair covered, but I hate it when everything is made into dogma and into religious oppression to appease a misogynist community. I don't think it should be either or. We should do these things because we love to. It's the same thing with submission. Submission is so beautiful when it's done because a person's heart wants to be there, and not necessarily because they're being oppressed into doing it. Head covering is so beautiful, and when it's done correctly, and when it's done in assembly, and when it's done to honor your husband, and when it's done to honor the father, it's so beautiful. But to watch women sour-faced and angry and not understanding and creating a aversion or a distant relationship between Yah by not understanding what our culture is, it's pretty disheartening. So I hope this brought a little bit of balance to this topic. Ladies, I love seeing your head wraps. Keep wearing them. Study to show thyself approved. And for this channel, because I know I get people who write me and they're like, on here, you don't have your head covered. I tell you guys, and I'll say it again and again and again, it doesn't bother me one way or another to wear one or not, first of all. But I can't please everybody. And I've told the people on this channel is called Her Royal Roots. And I want to show my hair sometimes to my sisters. Sometimes I like combing my hair. Sometimes I like wearing my fro out. And when I'm talking to you ladies, I want you to be able to see the things that you should be able to express when you're also around other women and when you don't have to always be on guard, So brothers who come to this channel, I love you, but it's not for you. So if you come here and my head being uncovered offends you, then it's not the channel for you, okay? So I'm not promoting anything, but what I'm saying is, for here is for us women to be comfortable and discuss the things that are important to Torah and important to helping us carry out our walk. So I hope this cleared up the head covering thing. This is the last thing I'm doing on head covering, also the first. If you want some other stuff, there's some podcast stuff. I think there's something in there or whatever, but this will be it, because it's not a subject that should be hard. And I think I went longer than I probably would have on this had it just been brought up to me randomly, but since it's going out worldwide, I want it to be objective. So read all of 1 Corinthians, read all of chapter 11, and then kind of tell me what you guys come up with. All right, shalom, shalom.
Royalty. Royalty. Power to the chosen people.